was a program manager leading a cross-functional program within a retail distribution center preparing for a holiday peak. My manager wanted to add 60 agency workers because the capacity model predicted a 16% shortfall. I believed the model overstated labor need and that congestion would make the proposed plan less safe and less productive. I could accept the plan, argue for no extra labor, or propose a measured pilot combining fewer hires with process changes. I recreated the model, sampled travel time, and found it assumed every picker started at the same zone entrance. Real congestion added 11 minutes per hour once staffing exceeded 210 people. I challenged the recommendation with the data, proposed 35 hires, staggered starts, and dynamic zone entry, and asked safety and finance to review my assumptions independently. My manager worried I was risking peak readiness. I acknowledged that risk, offered explicit triggers for another labor release, and committed to execute the final decision even if it remained 60. He approved a 2-week pilot but required 40 hires. I committed fully, trained supervisors, and reported both supporting and contradictory data each day. Before closing the action, I sampled performance across different shifts and demand conditions, so the result did not depend on one unusually experienced team or a quiet operating window. I translated the outcome into a simple frontline mechanism with a named owner, an escalation threshold, and a weekly measure, which made the change repeatable after I stepped away. I also documented the operating assumptions, named the owner for each follow-up action, and set a clear review date so that temporary controls could not quietly become permanent. I wrote the decision, assumptions, owners, and stop conditions on a 1-page control plan so the next shift could challenge the logic rather than rely on verbal context. I used both a leading indicator and a customer outcome measure that prevented a short-term productivity improvement from hiding quality, safety, or backlog age. During implementation, I stayed at the operating point for the first cycle, asked frontline employees what the mechanism missed, and changed only one variable at a time. I assigned named owners for each checkpoint and made escalation thresholds visible in the shift huddle, which reduced ambiguity when I was not physically present. After stabilization, I compared the result with the original baseline, checked for cost or defect displacement, and documented the mechanism for the other shifts. Before committing, I asked a supervisor who disagreed with me to identify the weakest assumption, then converted that concern into a measurable checkpoint rather than relying on consensus. I separated mandatory controls from preferences, which let the team move quickly without weakening the safety, quality, or customer promise that the operation existed to protect. For each alternative, I estimated the likely customer impact, labor requirement, operational reversibility, and worst credible failure, and I explained why my chosen path offered the best balance. I briefed affected teams before launch, checked understanding through questions rather than attendance, and made the escalation route clear to people working outside my shift. I also protected normal operations by defining which work would pause, which work would continue, and who could authorize expansion beyond the initial controlled scope. At every review point, I compared actual performance with the assumption that justified the decision. When they diverged, I changed the plan rather than defending the original recommendation. I made the cost of the choice visible as well as the benefit, because hiding overtime, rework, or displaced backlog would have made the result look stronger but less useful. Once the immediate issue was resolved, I held a short review with frontline representatives and partner teams, captured what failed in the original mechanism, and assigned permanent actions. The pilot delivered 18% more units per labor hour, congestion incidents fell 41%, and the final peak plan used 40 hires, saving £94,000 while meeting 98.7% on-time dispatch. I should challenge important decisions with reproducible evidence and a safer alternative, then commit visibly once the decision is made. I would involve safety 1 week earlier next time.